Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Good afternoon, listeners. It's Mannie from 27 Boxer Street out in Melville. The show is Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio. Didn't you just love that music, that song before the show sort of set the beat, you know? And, okay, I'm a Lone Ranger this morning. My partner and friend and co-host and brother took ill, and unfortunately, we need to do what we need to do. So, Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio has been running for a couple of weeks now, and we've had some interesting topics, we've had some interesting guests, and we're talking recovery. We're talking recovery from addiction, you know, alcoholism, drug addiction, prescription meds, illicit and legal drugs, you know. We don't claim to be experts, but we have a fantastic track record, and we just want to be out there in the communities, in the homes, teaching people, showing people that there's life after drugs. Like I say, my name is Mannie. I'm an addict. I'm also the owner of Breaking the Chains. And 16 years ago, I had no life. Absolutely nothing. I was a hobo in my own home. Worked very sporadically. Had very good jobs, but just couldn't keep them. Got involved in gangsterism and got involved in crime. You know, didn't want to listen to the universe and to people that loved me and cared and wanted a better life for me. I was caught in the grip of addiction. Today I call them the chains of addiction. And I was quite prepared to end up in one of the alleys in Hillbrow with a needle in my arm. And I actually wanted that. I prayed for that for many, many years. I think the last 5 years of my addiction, which, by the way, lasted 24 years. I was in active addiction for 24 years. And I started at the age of 13, you know, just with marijuana or dacha or weed that everybody thinks is so safe and so cool, and, you know, the tree of knowledge. I listened to Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. It was the days of apartheid. And I wanted to be a rebel, you know. I wanted to change things in this country, and but unfortunately, I got involved in drugs, and the disease of addiction is a progressive disease. So when I actually started with a couple of friends, and we took our first pull on the joint, as we call it, others call it a spliff, you know. I never imagined the life of pain and hopelessness and destruction that I was setting myself up for. And when they say it's a disease of progression, for a few weeks after that, I didn't bother with drugs, I didn't bother with alcohol. But when I did have it again, I loved it again. But the periods between me using started getting shorter. So from a month apart, it went to 3 weeks, and then to 2 weeks, and then to weekends. And then before I knew it, by the age of 14, I was smoking marijuana every single day, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a day. And obviously you get the munchies. So parents out there, you know, the signs that we look at, because it's a gateway drug. And people believe it's not too damaging. But I've seen over the years how damaging simple marijuana could be. You know, the state of psychosis that guys go into from excessive use. And yes, and so I start eating a lot. You know, I come home from school, we use it at school. It was freely available. It didn't cost a lot of money. Could buy it with my lunch money that I would get rarely. And makes the eyes red, you know, makes you irritable. Like I said, makes you eat. They call it the munchies. So I eat the whole pot of food. I'll eat a half a loaf of bread. I'll stuff myself with chocolates and crisp and cold drink. It should be a constant eating frenzy, you know. So if you're out there and you're wondering about your kids, because I can tell you now, the problem has become so huge. And the will from civil society and from government to deal with it is actually sad, because the drugs have become part and parcel of growing up, you know. And obviously, the Dacha stopped doing for me what it did. My tolerance levels had been reached with Dacha, and I moved on to Mandrex, you know. Now, fantastic, or an odd statistic about Mandrex, nowhere else in the world do they smoke Mandrex with Dacha. You know, you call it vat pipe in this country. But in South Africa, we do it. So, again, I didn't realize the path of destruction that I was setting myself on. So I was probably about the age of about 16, 17, and this became a huge problem. So I failed standard 9, currently grade 11. And when I found myself going back to school the following year, I was the eldest in the class. And because I'd never failed before, I couldn't handle this, you know. So I decided I'm going to leave school and I'm going to find a job. Obviously, with a job, at my age, with no proper qualifications, was difficult to find. But I did happen to find. But it was short-lived. I'd work 6 months or 7 months, and then I'd leave. And obviously, with addiction, the stealing starts, the lying, the conning, the manipulation of the disease. And I come from a home, a very loving home. We were 7 siblings, 3 brothers, 4 sisters. And my dad had passed on when I was 2 years old. So my mom, I think my elder sister must have been about 17 or 18. My brother was about the same age, a year older. And my mom was a single parent that worked very hard in a butcher, in a coal room, striving, making ends meet, you know, but the drugs didn't allow me to see this. And I just continued, and the stealing got worse, and the rudeness, and the aggression, and the lack of respect, and everything that I was taught as a kid flew out of the window. I'd become a man, you know. I hung around with guys that didn't respect anything. I hung around with people that never even respected themselves. And because we were rebels and the laws were biased, and there were no recreational facilities, and we went to school and we got bored, and we had too much time on our hands, and the drugs became the focal point. The drugs became everything, you know. And with the drugs came the ego and the big shotism and the gangsterism and the don't tell me attitude, you know. So my mom got tired of this, and eventually my mom tried to get me help, and she sent me to a support group. But when I got to the support group, I was 17 years old. There were men in this group that had hit their wives and had sold their properties and had lost their homes and jobs and cars and had criminal records. And I was 17, and these were old guys. I called them dinosaurs. And I couldn't identify. And when I came back from that meeting, my mom asked me, she said, "So how was the meeting?" And I said to her, I said, "You know what, Ma? Those guys are bad. They need the meeting." And she gave me a choice. The choice was either I get my act together or she's going to ask me to leave the home. Obviously, I didn't get my act together. And, they say I'm the type of person that has to learn from his own mistakes. So I was a bit of a moron. and then you get wise people that learn from other people. And I certainly wasn't wise. I had to make my own mistakes, and I had to bump my head many, many times. And we're gonna continue with that story. It might sound boring, but you know what? It's actually true, and I think it's common. But we're gonna take a break, and we started a bit late, but that's fine. We're gonna be pumping. So thank you from Breaking the Chains at this moment. Let's take a break and speak to you shortly.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.beastownmedia.co.za.
The unique experience. Living as One Events presents relationship talks, drama, Q&A sessions,
music, love stories, ladies and gents session, and lots more. Registration fee at 150 Rand. Happening
at Bread of Life Foundation Venue, Honeydew Shopping Center, Bayers Nordia Drive, corner Blueberry Drive, Unit 66, Laser Park, Honeydew. Saturday, 15 September at 11 a.m. RSVP on 072-851-8702.
Whether you're an athlete or just going about your day-to-day business, use Turbo Freeze on the go for any pain relief or inflammation. It's the #1 pain relief formula. To find out more, log on to our website www.turbofreeze.co.za.
Hey Bonang, how are you?
Hi Tuli, look so beautiful. Hey, long time no see. What happened to your skin, by the way? The last time I saw you, you had a lot of blemishes and breakouts. It was so terrible, man.
Wow, thanks for that, Bonang. Luckily, I discovered DMK. Have you heard of DMK?
DMK? Who are they?
DMK is a paramedical skincare brand that specializes in all skin conditions. Would you like their number?
Yes, please.
I know you're not good at numbers, so let me give you their website address because your skin looks terrible. It's www.dmkskincare.co.za.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
Okay, so we're back. Now, it's a long story. It's very difficult to condense 24 years of active addiction and 16 years of recovery into half an hour. And I think our listeners will appreciate that, you know. So I'm going to try and speed it up a bit because the main purpose of the show is so that people out there can identify with my story and can identify with what drugs did to me and not necessarily what drugs did for me. So at the age of 17, my mother actually put me out of the house. And I had an ego and I had this big shot attitude, and I decided I'm going to make it. And I lived on the street, and I lived in some homes, and I lived in some cars, and some buses that were parked, in schools, temples, anywhere I could find a place that was safe, I would sleep. And finding a job, and then I met the lady that today is my wife, and I sort of pulled myself straight, and we got married, and we had our first kid, but the drugs was continuing throughout this, you know. So for 17 years of my marriage, it was ugly, it was cold, it wasn't even a marriage, you know. I was never at home. I was more with my friends, more with my drugs, drugging in my house, drugging in front of my wife, drugging in front of my kid, because that's what drugs does. I'm not proud, don't get me wrong, I'm not proud of what I'm saying, I'm not proud of what I did. And it might sound even hypocritical, but I don't regret it, because if I regret it, I would have never experienced, or if I never went through it, I would have never experienced the life that I live today. So from the Mandrax, it moved on to coke, then I started dabbling in heroin, then it was Rohypnol and Vesperex and Valcanol, and again rocks and cocaine, and so alcohol always in the mix there, you know, always liked my tequilas and my brandies, and I created a tornado, you know. I would roar through other people's lives, and I would destroy, and I would inflict pain, and I actually, honestly, wanted to do that. I was angry at the world. I was angry at my family. I was angry at my wife, and I was angry at my in-laws. And I wanted to show them that they don't mess with me because I take drugs and I'm a big shot, and they need to toe the line. And I got involved in the law, and I got arrested, and I got locked up, and I got taken to court, and I paid fines, and a whole lot of ugliness started to become part and parcel of my everyday life. And I've been to rehab after rehab after rehab, expensive rehabs. And then one fateful day, I met a guy called Jakes. So big shout out to my brother Jakes from Thames House. Thames House, the place where I found my spirituality, where I found my recovery, and where I began to live, And he took me through a program. So he took me through a 12-step program. But the way he gave me the program, the way he explained the program to me, for the first time in my life, I understood who I was. For the first time in my life, I could comprehend the damage that I did. I could comprehend the bastard that I became. I don't say that to be derogatory, but there's no word in the English dictionary or in the English language or any language that would be able to describe the state I was in. I couldn't be called human, I'd done things like smashed 12 cars, poured paraffin on my wife and my son, willing to set them alight, drove through precast walls, smashed windows, dealt in firearms and carried knives and pangas and got involved in fights and had my jaw broken, got stabbed, been hospitalized from overdosing. It was ugly. But anyway, that's the past. There's nothing I can do about that. That's what Jakes told me, and I agreed with him. And but I could do something about my present. And the present I'm talking about is 16 years ago, and I found the spirituality that had awoken in my being. I began to understand that I'm not an island. I began to understand that I'm a human being and I'm having a spiritual experience. And I fell in love with myself, and I fell in love with my people, and I fell in love with my community and my country. And for the first time in my life, my pain had become my foundation for my purpose. And I wanted to change lives, and I wanted to help addicts, and I started this journey, and we started to form groups in NA and form AA groups and go on rallies and hold conventions and speak at these rallies, speak at these conventions, go out to homes when we got a call. They call it a 12-step call. Go into a home that's broken, dark, lost, confused, full of hate, full of pain, and bring healing, And I think the purpose of the show is to tell you that there's healing in the rooms of recovery. There's healing in the message of recovery. Our message is hope. Our promise is freedom. One of the things that I fell in love with was, firstly, with me, and I fell in love with life. I began to take life by the horns, and I began to take the reins of my life, and I began to live like there's no tomorrow. Because we live just in this moment, and that's all that we have is this moment. Whether you Bill Gates or whether you Cyril Ramaphosa, you have only this moment. And what we do in these moments are going to matter. And what we do in these moments can make a difference. And what we do in these moments is what life is about. So if there's anybody out there that's battling, if there's a family, if there's communities, if there's schools, I think as a country we need to band together. And we unban lives, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. We need to hold hands. We need to We need to carry each other. I have a slogan that I live by today. I want to be my brother's keeper. There's a line that says, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live. I might not be the man I want to be. I might not be the man you want me to be. But I thank God every day I'm not the man that I used to be. So basically the show's short, but it's sweet. It's the show with swagger, and it's a show that stirs the soul. We deal with real issues. You know, we don't fabricate and we don't sugarcoat the disease of addiction. It kills. I've been to many funerals where young men under the age of 30 had to be buried because of an overdose or a hanging or a shooting or a gang-related fight. So this disease kills. The amount of car accidents on the road, the overload on the courts, the overload on the prison system, the high crime rate that's contributed directly by addicts in addiction. And then there's the beautiful, gentle healing of addicts that are all over the country, going into homes and into communities and saving lives and saving communities. So we got to decide, we got to make decisions. You know, we got to make decisions that add value. We got to make decisions that bring about purpose. We got to make decisions that bring about love. They say life takes you to unexpected places, but love always brings you home. So my name is Mannie. I'm an addict. The number to call is 083 991 5600. The email address is breakingthechans 2017 at outlook.com. That's Breaking the Chains 2017 at outlook.com. If you or anyone you know that's suffering with the disease of addiction, with the senseless pain, the hurt and the destruction of families and morals and the fiber of our society, let's get together, let's talk, let's see, let's find, and let's heal. My name is Mannie. I'm an addict coming to you live from 27 boxes out in Melville. The show is Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio. There's no need to suffer alone.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.